Yeah.
All right. 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. And we'll start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the indigenous people and ancestors whose lands we now share. And we can move down to the agenda. As you've got the email yesterday, amazingly. No additions.
Can I add one? It's just in camera and it's personnel, please.
So up under B. Put first. You're taking that job with MDPs, aren't you? Okay, any other additions? Okay, get a motion to accept the agenda with the addition. Councillor Reese, all in favor? That's carried. Linda, I'm just going to call you an all in favor. Adoption of the minutes, March 25th, any discussion arising? Errors, omissions, none, get a motion. Councillor Fees, carries, moves to adopt the receipt of the minutes. All in favor? That's carried. Move down, no delegations, move down to 5. So we come back to the item C after the in-camera. Can we do A and B now? I think so. Bylaw 25-15-500.
This is gonna be a real tricky one, so I'm happy to speak first.
I would love for you to speak to it.
Sarcastically, it's tricky. We've got a line of credit, like an operating line of credit and credit cards with ATV. As such, we have to pass this annually, just to actually authorize that. So we're a bit late doing it this year, but this is good for calendar year 2025. In practice, we don't use the operating line of credit, but it's there if we ever. So.
And it also authorizes the credit cards, like
Yeah,
the
credit cards, so it's just all short-term borrowings,
Yeah.
is how it's phrased, but it's. The limits in there, 50,000 is the credit cards and 2 million is the operating line.
All right, any questions? Not, get somebody to give a first reading. Councillor Beckman moves to give first reading to the bylaw. All in favor? It's carried. And item B is bylaw 25-40-499.
And you get the second and third reading.
Yeah, you can do them all for the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay.
I'll move the second reading.
Okay, Councillor Shaw gives second reading. All in favor? Carried. And motion to move to third and final. Brenda, Councillor Sinski, all in favor? That's carried. Now we can move to 499.
No, it wasn't. Third and final.
Oh, third and final, sorry. Linda,
Everybody gets a turn.
is she paying attention?
Yeah, she did.
Linda, would you be prepared to give third and final reading? Is she giving or?
I got it on.
Okay, so Councillor Haladuski, all in favor? It's carried. Okay, sorry about getting ahead of myself here now, before I done. And who wants to speak to this one?
So Charles is in the city for some training and he asked me to present the first reading of the water bylaw. I think it more or less stayed the same. I think the only thing they really added was the drought portions. That would be more on this.
That's it's an appendix, right?
Yeah.
Schedule, I think the road wants this. One in a couple places refer to co-op. And there's, is that just for a future co-op that would ever be developed, or we don't have such a thing as a water co-op anymore? Originally, when the water was put in, that's how they started putting the rural connections in, was through a co-op, and then it eventually got the county took it over. And it's. I mean, it doesn't matter, it's only a word in there, but I just didn't know if it was relevant anymore.
I wouldn't think so, but we could take it out, truly take it out, it's,
I don't know. He spent a lot of time working on this, and we want
I think we give it first reading.
to edit it.
yeah, but,
You know.
We discuss, I mean, we go through first reading today and we can. We can do all the changes today.
And then the other thing was to. And like I said, this is basically the old bylaw, just kind of tweaked a little bit. So I guess it wasn't in there before, but. I know there was another policy that kind of clearly stated that. The water system was for residential use, right? Kind of priority. And when you get into the drought. Appendix, then it kind of, when you get into the different levels of drought, then it kind of. But depending if you're in a severe stage of drought, then it's residential use and you limited. But up until that point, it's kind of wide open, and which is fine, because I mean, that's. What we had a meeting for, was the agriculture producers were looking for it. But just so everybody is aware that. It was designed for residential use, not for watering livestock, not for spraying, not for filling camps. I think residential and firefighting should take precedence.
Oh, that was kind of my thought too, and then I wonder, like, do we need to go back and tweak that policy to make it match the bylaw now that it's gonna change?
on, in item number 19,
What page number 19?
page 5, page 6, page 8,
We'll just say what section it is.
so section 19.
19.
B. A potable water holder who delivers water from a trickle to residential consumers within the boundaries of the county may apply. That's the rebate portion. Where's the
Yeah, you see right below that, it says rural water and co-op lines. I just don't know that co-op lines is really relevant. But maybe it is, I just,
I'll fill that one.
So that is still talked about on the terms and conditions on the back of the application forms. So it's going to appear a few times. That.
So do we encompass like the Weberville co-op?
no, that's,
They're separate.
the county has nothing to do with that, that's a.
Okay, well, yeah. but that's,
You're on that, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a board,
Pardon me.
there is a separate board
We're
on
on
there.
there to manage that.
Mhm.
Just left with the language from when it was co-op.
I think that's what it is, right? When you started out and
I wouldn't hesitate that.
yeah, so I mean, do we have,
Cause on the application, he did update it and put like as per
Yeah.
section F, but there's just,
and maybe council's fine the way it is, I remember when this whole. You know, we invested a lot of money and it was kind of clear that it was for residential use. Because that's when our oil activity was very active yet, and we were using it for fracking and for camps, and we kind of. Tried to put the clamps on that. And now it's moved to agriculture, which. I mean, their ratepayers are probably entitled to it, but just somewhere it should be stated that residential is kind of the primary purpose, right?
yeah, that was kind of my feeling too. I don't want anything contradictory or anything, leaving it open for argument or anything like that. That's what my thought too, but. But I do like this appendix. I mean, he did a really good job on it. I think it's very clear. The steps are there. The one question I had, so like, what are we gonna do for all the people who already have filled out this? Like, will we send them an update saying that like it's changed? Do they have to re-sign it? Like, because I know like now the one that I signed 10 years ago is probably different, right?
You were looking at me.
I'm looking at anybody who's,
Yeah.
who's willing to pick it up, yeah.
We have people who have yet to sign an original. So I think personally, it would be an absolute nightmare to have everybody re-sign these application forms. Especially if it hasn't materially changed.
You're talking about application for,
Yeah, so like I have a truck phone number, but now this is going to be way different than what I originally signed.
The
Well, not
only,
way different, I shouldn't say way different, there's been changes.
the only difference is the whole drought aspect and
Yeah.
the tiered, I guess, provisions that we have, so. It would be best practice to have everybody re-sign one. I don't think. we
And,
get-
and I don't think that's realistic, I don't think that's a realistic ask at all, I'm just saying, like, how do we communicate that there's been changes and that they need to be aware?
Send truck bill bills every month
And
and
just stick
utility
it in
bills
there.
every month. I think we can print
Stick
it
it in
out,
there, yeah.
do it as an insert.
And I'm more thinking like cover our bases, right?
Yeah.
But today, I think we're only taking this first reading, we're gonna be setting a public hearing for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure, 100%, it was just one of the questions I had.
No, we can definitely add a public hearing to it, but I just want to remind council that, I mean, this is an existing bylaw.
Mhm.
It's 499, so most likely referred to in the documentation that was signed to the specific bylaw.
Yeah.
So,
Which
and I mean, if the bylaw changes, like any law, I mean, once it changes, it's automatically back read into all previous agreements, so you
Yeah.
can't say, oh, I didn't sign that part, the law, so it still refers to this bylaw.
but in the case, like I said, as long as it aligns with our policy, right? So we have a bylaw and we also have a policy, right?
Yeah.
So they should kind of speak the same,
We can make sure that that aligns absolutely.
so we have to look at the policy then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean,
We'll come back to that discussion a little bit later, because I have something in camera that I need to discuss with council too about specifically like that.
That's fine, otherwise I'm good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
okay, so we just need a motion to, do the first reading.
I can make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Fees. Oh, any further discussion before we, so this will require a public hearing on this, well?
So if it's given first reading, when is the second and third reading happening?
You don't have to do a
Public hearing?
a public hearing, but I would recommend that you maybe put it out and see if there's somebody that will.
So we should add it in a motion then that would set a date for that and advertise.
Maybe we can do that in
Yeah, what, we need 2 weeks?
at least 2 weeks, yeah. So maybe we can do the public hearing on the 22nd then as part of council.
Okay, all in favor? Good.
I think it's the 22nd, the next council meeting.
Yep.
Can't do advertising.
You can't do it that quickly.
The first May one,
Yes.
May.
May the 13th.
Does that, I was just gonna ask, how far does that push the timelines back for the guys who want answers for spraying though?
Well, if we pass it on May 13th.
Yeah.
It's good, then everybody's spraying until
Yeah.
May.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm not,
Just a little burn off.
Some of that, yes. That can carry on like we did last year until.
yeah, as long as.
Okay, item C, we're gonna do after in cameras, we can move down to 6.1.1. Item A, letter from Alberta Tourism, for the winter, summer and winter games. Obviously, we don't have the capacity to host that, but we received a letter, just so everybody should be aware of it. We helped out some of the urbans, and they've hosted it before, Peace River, Grimshaw, they put us summer games a couple of years ago. So I think this is just, I see we have a motion from 2022. Except for information. Unless somebody wants to host some games, but
In all reality, you do not have the capacity as the county to host anything. The town has very nice ball diamonds, but shy of that, I don't think we can host anything else.
in the one year they did, Peace River hosted it, I think, and they come out to Manny to play some ball. That's about as close as we ever got, so. And then when they did the winter games, Dixonville was supposed to host some
Really, I think.
skiing or something cross country or.
That was the summer games and the,
Oh, okay.
Horseshoe.
Horseshoe, that's what it was, but I never did it anyway, so.
And we did good enough. Participating.
That was the over
I
65.
was gonna say that-
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so unless, anybody has different ideas, let's get a motion to accept the information.
I'll move it, could we include that, that our neighbors that participate, we would
Support.
offer some support, towards that. And, acknowledge that we don't have the capacity to host the event.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes,
None. Okay, item B, letter to the Peace River School Division, read the Dixonville School. So, Peace River School Division had an open house in Dixonville last week. Well attended, most of council attended, and they did a viability review. And they kind of got, what, three options, I guess. One is to try to carry on, one is to reduce the class or the grades they offer. And one is to eventually close the school. So pretty passionate group of people there that want to see their school remain. And I guess we're just looking maybe for a letter of support from the council to the school division that we support keeping the school open.
Yeah, they make, we need to do final submissions of any letters or recommend or whatever we want to do before the 14th of this month.
Yeah, and then they're going to make a decision at the end of the
I
month.
think.
Well, I'll make a motion to go ahead and send a letter of support.
That's what something against that motion, so, and we're meeting with Minister Williams on Thursday. And that's coming up later on the, next item, I guess. So that'll be one of our topics is. Because it seems like it's based on numbers of student population and the projected numbers that the school division is using and what the residents seem to think are different, right? And if they use, what the residents have been canvassing for, it's quite a bit of a different picture. Well, not real great yet, but it's better than what the school division has. I mean, the school division, in fairness, they only know what they have, right? They're canvassing, I guess, or I don't know what all they obtain. They just go by registrations, right?
I was talking to one of the members and their hands are tied too, pretty much with like how they're governed, so it's. I think it's sort of. It should have been done at least last fall instead of now, like this is sort of a bad deal, the way they, sprung it on them and, like, there's no way that they can really come up because of the time limits and stuff. That even if they do find more, then it isn't gonna work, so.
Yeah,
I will get more funding and I think that's what we need to ask. To
I mean,
Williams about.
the way Jeff superintendent talked, I mean, was it like $250,000 is what they would need to get back in, which.
Well, and I think the process was tough too, right? Like, I think there's errors that need to be corrected there too, because it's, nothing triggered, like, when they looked at their numbers at the beginning, they weren't in crisis mode, so it didn't trigger this viability next step until it was already later, right? So I think, yeah, so I think it was tough for the trustees too, right? Like, they didn't trigger that process yet, so that's tough, but it was a great meeting. It was nice to see everybody out. It was heart-wrenching to hear all the kids read their letters and it was tough, but it was nice to see the community rally together. Sounds like they have a meeting tonight. Or Wednesday, yeah, so that's good. I'm glad to see them rally together, so.
But I mean, you're right, the board is in a tough spot, right? They just look at it from a number side, right? And if the Department of Education said, oh, well, we'll give you $250,000 to keep you going, when there's probably a lot of rural schools in Alberta in the same predicament, and so it just kind of multiplies, right? Next thing you're up to
It's,
10 million.
it's really hard, right? Like they're bound by their policies, no different than we are, and not everything, sometimes you do have to take your heart out of it, and I think, you know, Crystal mentioned that as the chair, like it's tough.
Similar situation when the board closed the lodge in Berlin. You know, because the increasing cost per resident, you know, it was unfairly increasing there and. Yeah, it's tough, but.
So then, again, probably North Peace Housing, same thing, like the school division said, in order to shore up Dixonville, I'd have to rob from somebody else, right? So that is kind of unfair.
Or increase the whole provincial education budget, which
Yeah.
they already did. I'm sure you guys have heard those stories already, right? All of our property taxes are gonna go up for an increase on the Alberta Education Fund already. Which you take the blame for, because nobody understands that.
Yeah, that's,
Schools and development.
but we, like that, part of that, you know, like that tax, does that go straight to the, provincial government and then they divvy it out?
Yes.
It goes into a pot.
So
Just into,
all the education requisition money, so like $3.5 million that we collect, we pay to the province and they pay according to their formulas to, not necessarily our schools in our.
It all goes into the crab pot and it goes.
and, but we don't get that,
It's
that
a-
whole amount.
No, it's a
Okay.
provincial
Does not
tax
stay
that we collect on their behalf.
That was one of the questions,
Yeah.
I was asked.
So North Peace Housing is ultimately the same, and same with the designated industrial property requisition as well. That one's a lot smaller.
So the housing requisition, it goes into a general pot?
Well, except it's the agency in your boundaries, so that one's given specifically to North Peace Housing. A little different, but
Little different.
collected the same way, right? It's collected on their behalf because they don't have the means to do it. I think the provincial one probably is collected on their behalf, so they could not take the blame for it.
All right, well, we'll draft up a letter and get it out before the 14th. So all in favor? Carried. Item C is a proposed meeting with Mr. Williams, so I reached out to him to see if he could come and join us today. And of course, he wasn't available, but they did offer the virtual meeting on the 10th, 11 AM, so we'll take that, I guess. If we want, and that was just my own conversation with Angela and I with Dan. And if council wishes to, we can proceed, and if we do wish to, then we should have a list of topics. And I think the reason I asked for it was exactly what we just talked about, was a school closure or potential school closure, so, you know, I mean, at all. Because he's connected to the finance minister, but he probably limited what he can do, he can go back to Edmonton and advocate like we do, but I think we have to just
I
make,
think it's important.
it is to keep our voices heard. So between now and Thursday, anybody has any other topics, just kind of likes to know ahead of time so you can have information and
Maybe we can add the high school.
we could, that's,
That's
yeah, that's fine. So what Garrett's referring to there is, they wanna, they're gonna demolish Manning Elementary, that's a given, that's probably gonna start any time, end of this month, once they move out of there. But the junior high school still hasn't got a schedule, but the clock is ticking. John Trabelski from the school division called the other day, said, "What, do you guys have any plan what you can do?" I said, "Well, no." I said, "We met with the architects back in January, and they did a walkthrough that morning and had their flashlight and their clipboard out and made a bunch of notes, and they're gonna bring a report back and saying, you know, some options, what could be saved or what couldn't be saved, and never, haven't heard a thing from them. I reached out twice to them and left messages and haven't called back, and
So this initiative, this would be a partnership with the town.
well, that's debatable.
Well,
Because-
yeah, if it is, you know, the problem is with the town, they're not, their councils don't have a majority in favor of
That's right.
putting anything, so then that throws it into our ring, so is there appetite here for us to take over his question?
And that's the question too, right? I mean. Thoughts are that, so they, and I don't know the numbers, but say they budget $2 million to demolish it. And we said, well, no, we don't want to see a perfectly good asset be demolished. Can we take that 2 million from that budget and give it to the municipality to, you know, foster those things, like, even if we just put it to bed for now, but if at some time have a reserve fund to, and I don't know that that's an easy decision for them to make, but, you know, obviously Dan Williams got to make that decision, and I don't think it works that way. I mean, if they move something out of one budget, it just goes into general revenues and they repay the street and on the Anthony Andy or something with it. But it's worth asking.
Well, we can ask Dan about that.
Yeah.
You know,
If there's such
it's a potential option, but other than that, we want to saddle with a liability, but it could be, you know, plus demolition costs.
Yeah, I mean, if they turn it over to the municipality or municipalities for $1, then there is no investment until you have to demolish it yourself in 10 years if it doesn't get used, or if you decide to turn it into something. Would that be a community center or, you know, hear all sorts of, I mean, I heard the mayor at the joint meeting said he wanted to make a RCMP training station or something. And I mean, that was his own idea, because it would take a few $1 million to renovate it into anything, whether it was seniors living or RCMP or you name it. Because I mean, it's got lots of classrooms, but the classrooms don't have bathroom facilities in them, and they're not really, they're designed as classrooms, not as living quarters. Let's put that on our list.
It would cost us even if we only paid $1 for it, because we would still have to. We would want to keep utilities on. Otherwise,
That's
and insurance.
It would be exempt more than likely if it was owned by us and not used for anything else.
And utilities, that's what I'd like to talk to these architects. That maybe you can shut the heat and water off, drain all the water out of it. And just buy a lift of plywood and put over the windows, and you know, it's time, but I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. I know when you don't heat building, they tend to deteriorate, things start to shift. And, but you heat it at 10 degrees and
then if the big civil school closes, we do the same thing.
yeah, well, that's gonna be up to
Well,
those residents, I guess. If
it's in our helmet. At least it's in our.
I guess my overall thought is this is a perfectly good asset yet. That if you demolish it, we're never gonna get it back, which maybe that's the end result anyway, I don't know, but it's worth looking at because it's still not too late.
no other groups would come forward.
No.
Showing interests.
And why would they? I mean, if you were a businessman or whatever, you know, unless you had a real good vision or plan for it. It almost would be nice to have a feedback from the public on what their thoughts are, because I've heard people say, well, why don't they do something like that gymnasium, make a, you know, a public field house or. And I guess the options that we're looking at when the architects toured it was, is that been added on 3 times, I think, or twice it's been added on. So it is in sections that you could actually separate some of it. It's got outside walls, utilities are kind of over in an area where it would allow that. So maybe let them come in and demolish what they want, but save some of the core stuff like the gymnasium, the home ec room, the industrial arts lab. And then the bathrooms are all kind of in that area too. You can have a community building there that, and what you do with it, I don't know. But I do know what you do with it. If it ends up in a landfill, you do absolutely nothing with it then. And then the town has they probably would turn the property over to the town then, so now they got a 2-acre lot there to control weeds and. Let's talk with Dan about it, and maybe. I talked to John Shabilsky yesterday when we were driving home, and I said, I haven't heard nothing. He said, well, I don't think that Rob is in. He said, I said, well, his secretary said, she went down the hall and said, he's on the phone, and he'll call you back. So it's almost like they're avoiding, they wanna give us the bad news that
Has anybody paid them either? Like, just dragging their feet? Or were we going to pay them for this study?
New Ridge,
Were the architects getting paid for this?
well, that never was discussed. They're up doing a tour of the new school and they were flying out that, came there sitting at the airport. They were flying out that later that morning, so they come over and did a walkthrough and they're hour or 2 hours with them. So, but then they go back to Edmonton and they gotta summarize everything, so yeah, that could be a no, they never discussed that. I mean, think if that's what's holding it up, they would say so.
And so just like to add further to that, it did come up at our North East Housing meeting, Mayor McLeod did bring it up, and John Shabilsky sits on North East Housing for the MD. And it basically stopped there, they're like, yeah, we don't wanna touch it with a 10-foot pole, it's just too much of a liability for us to take right now.
Who said that?
North East Housing don't want to
Oh,
take
yeah,
it or
North East
anything
Housing.
like that, so. But I know we did talk about it at our joint meeting and Robert did bring it up, but it was just too much question marks and unknowns. For the board to feel comfortable taking it on.
So I mean, he's been talking about that ever since they started the new school and see, well, we got time. Well, now we don't have time anymore, right? So. And I think that they've already got a contract for the demolition that was part of it. I think the same contractor that built the new one was. So there'll probably be some penalties to pay out there as well. We'll put it on the list. Anything else that we want to bring up with him?
Well, wouldn't it be fairly easy to put on our website? Or ask people if there was any, interest in, some type of, restructuring or whatever, like to take it on. If it was known that, this was a possibility, maybe something would come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, well, it probably wouldn't. Like I said, it'd be nice to have some public feedback, but we've never really asked the question. And some people have asked it just privately, they realize what's going on. And
You need to have a plan of what you're asking, would you like to see something done with the school is not a good question to ask the general public.
Well, and then it's tough
And
because
also-
like, is the province even gonna be willing to dole it out before? That's kind of step one, you have to know, is the province willing to part with it, or do they wanna just leave it as part of the contract and put it to bed, right?
And if you part it out, you need to have some sort of idea of how much is it gonna cost to spend out.
that's,
We don't have.
that's, abstract number. Well, you know what, we'll just run it by Dan and he's gonna be a smart politician and say, well, we can't help you.
So I was thinking maybe we should put a plug in to invite him to our 30th coffee and cake thing while we have it on the line, it's far enough out, he could know.
Yeah.
The other thing is, well, either Gerhard or I can forward it out, the mental health task force did send him a letter of advocacy. Because the out of the cold shelter in Peace River is out of funding as of May 1st. And they get 6-month funding and there's issues coming with that, so I know that when Minister Ellis and Dan were up in Peace River last week, they did meet with Sagatow, and I'm waiting for Marissa to give me the update on how that went, but if they didn't get resolved, then that's something that I would like to see on the agenda,
Yeah.
get to talk with them.
But again,
So, yeah, one of us can forward the letter off to council so they can have a chance to read it or whatever, but.
I think they scheduled us an hour with them, so there'll probably be more. Just kind of ad hoc stuff will come up anyway, I guess, but
Yeah, and I mean, if Sagatow got the result that they need and the answer that they needed from that meeting, then it's kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
But we did, that when I wrote the letter, I did CC all the municipalities, so you guys were aware of what we were driving home to him about, so it's kind of a long letter, so. Went on a bit of a rant. But we'll forward that out, so yeah, if that was the only other thing I had for that meeting.
all right, we'll just a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proposed meeting on Thursday. And if whoever can attend, that'd be great. You want to make a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor Silky, all in favor? It's carried. 6.1.2, the CEO, item A, the CEO report.
You. So we had a joint meeting with the town of Manning. They asked for the airport numbers, which Josh gave me and I shared with April. The Green Municipal Fund letter of support we did receive from them.
So just go back to A, the airport numbers. Oh, okay, so sorry, last 3 years, like whatever, couple of years you went back.
Five, didn't it? Or we did, yeah, sorry, back three
Three
and
plus
then,
three in the future.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. Then the Provincial Priorities Act webinar, there was a webinar about what we can add from or ask from the federal government. You have to register all of those requests on a website if it's under a certain amount, and for some reason I think it's like $100,000. More than that, you have to actually wait for approval of these submitted online. We had a staff meeting, and again, Russell, 20 years of service, and Justin, 10 years, so it was really cool. We did a mental health webinar. Struggled through the presentation with the computer systems, but I think the message that came across was quite good. That is one of my passions, is the mental health staff, and sometimes it is overlooked. Then we also presented the offering that we have as part of our benefits. Move to Sparrow, which is a part of our employee assistance program. And, if you have, and it's not just for mental health, it actually can give you financial support, not financial support as in giving you money, but how to work with your money and stuff like those stuff.
So this is outside the benefit program we have for dental and all that stuff right now.
It's just sort of a mental health / lifestyle support.
Is
Or
there,
an integrated mental and physical health support is what they were.
is there a fee for that, or is it just an app?
It is an app. It's an app that you have on your phone, and through the app you get access to whatever assistance you need.
and there is a fee, but it's like $4 a month that we're paying for this. And originally it was actually discounted off of our healthcare coverage. So they just knocked that one down by $4 and charged us $4 per person.
Washed out.
It's a washout, yeah. I do believe this one is applicable to council as well. And all of our volunteer firefighters have it as well. I think this is everybody that's kind of under that county umbrella.
Yeah, maybe fan it out to council.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Yeah, so it'd be $4 per.
It's
per app.
already,
It's already
yeah,
in there.
it's county paid
Okay.
premium.
Yeah, maybe just even mind emailing out the app.
Or I'll get Polly to assist with
Yeah.
the installation, maybe like our two manual, and whoever needs assistance, we can help.
If anybody's interested.
Yeah. And then probably saw on your chairs the 30-year anniversary pullovers. Thank council for buying us nice pullovers. Yeah, and please, whoever's attending the career fairs, just please wear that. You don't have to wear the hat, because I heard that some people don't like wearing hats. Wink, wink. But for the ones who don't mind hats, it would look good. Then I'll have a little bit of discussion later on with the council about an ordinance standing committee that I want to establish. And that is specifically linked to policies, bylaws, those type of things that we can sort of workshop together before we actually bring them to council for approval. Then I'll just want to remind everyone again, I will be on leave. The April the 21st, we're flying out, we'll be back on the 12th in Canada.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the report?
Oh, in that period.
No.
Josh gracefully accepted to help me out.
motion to accept the CA report.
Okay, Councillor Decker moves to acknowledge receipt of the CO report, accept for information, all in favor? Carried. And they're still available on WhatsApp.
Yes.
We'll start getting wildfires and we're evacuating, we can summon you.
Fly me back down. After the 26th at least, yeah.
We'll keep going, we've got a pretty short agenda here, but let's get the finance out of the way. Item A, Director of Finance update, Josh.
Council grants, your standing item unchanged from the last meeting, but there for your review again. So we'll just kind of glance over that one. The bigger one is, we've started uploading our assessment data, so just a quick and dirty summary of what that looks like for you guys year over year. It's kind of a cool factor. It's up about 6.8% overall. Look at where that is happening. It's not necessarily good news. It's further increase on our non-residential tax reliance. Those are kind of the categories that saw the biggest increase. And obviously, we still have a looming DIP property assessment appeal for 2 years. That's ongoing, so that increased yet again. Linear property, big reason for the increase there. I think those pipelines are starting to come online now, not online, but for assessment purposes. So that's a good chunk of that. Residential just seemingly increases every year. Apparently houses are worth more and more every year.
Was that also because there's been some new construction?
There has been, I mean,
So combination of both?
Yeah.
Just-
a little bit of both. And then farmland, obviously, pretty much stagnant. They did, so a little bit more land that's open up for change. Class, I guess, assessment in there is the biggest reason for that. Because the AYMs didn't change for there, so farmland's being assessed at the same value it's been assessed at for longer than I've been alive. For property tax purposes. So interesting from this data, this freeze on your mill rates would see a tax revenue increase of $1.38 million. Yay, that's not enough, according to the budget. So good news, bad news. We'll look at that in more detail at the next meeting. Any questions on that?
So I thought your opening thing, you said the non-residential was the main increase, but it's
All non-residential categories, so anything that's not residential.
yeah, so linear and
Yeah.
okay.
Anything that's not their people in their houses and their land. So you'll see this in more detail when I do the property tax bylaw, but with these figures, like we've typically been 80 to 84% of our tax revenue comes from non-residential sources or not farmland and residential sources. That's up to like 90% this year with keeping the same mill rate structure. So that's good and bad, I guess. We can talk through that later, but comes with challenges and benefits, I guess, at the end of the day. Planning and development clerk, just a verbal update. So Pearl will be going to sit with ISL at their office next week. Yes, next week. So she's gonna be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, half day Thursday. So back in time for the long weekend. We've got a plan kind of hashed out with them of how to best utilize that time. She's excited and way cheaper for us or more cost effective to send her there than to have somebody from their team come up here. So that's why she's going. And I think it'll help just take away the day-to-day distractions from our office as well and let her focus a little bit more on that. As of right now, she's kind of working in the office with me as things come up. So we've sat through a couple of preliminary questions on 2 different subdivision potential applications, both which are still not firm applications yet, because they work through some issues. She's had quite a few communications from myself, just updating her on things. She's going to be sitting in and watching council stuff still. She is not to the point where she will be presenting to you guys yet, but eventually some of the stuff. And so Gloria, the goal is to kind of get her to where you were. Right, so that's the plan that we're taking. Next here, property tax file notifications. So this is any property owner that is 2 years in arrear on their taxes that has real property, so titled land or buildings, we have to submit this list to land titles, who will endorse it, and this is actually a registration on their title saying that we have an interest registered against it, so it's one of the requirements for recovery proceedings, but basically just firms up our stake so that it can't be sold or changed or anything like that, and gets it ready to be sold at a tax auction. So there was 18 new ones that were sent off. That's actually probably a little less than average, I would say, because the list itself of everybody that's in arrears is quite big. So, and of that 18, I think there's a couple owners that have multiple properties on there, so it's not even 18 different people. And then last off, just another quick update on our system transition. We're almost to the point where we are at the end of updating you guys on this. We've gotten to a point where shy of few specialized testing instances, we're onto just their normal standard support. Support tickets and requests are becoming much less frequent. They are having a wealth of other municipalities sign on with them, which is mixed opinions, good news, bad news. It's good because it's more people that will be utilizing what we're utilizing, which takes the risk of it disappearing away. It's gonna increase the draw on their support team, obviously, and their staff, so it's a risk, but that's normal for these types of organizations. Dano's working with them specifically right now to test tax notices. We had a bit of issues last year with printing and distributing and invoicing and the way that worked. So that's ongoing, but they believe they've fixed all of that. So the last few problems we're dealing with are kind of not super important, but still kind of just slight annoyances, and we continue to work with them on that front. So the last sentence there, just remind you guys, because you don't see it, but this was a big job, obviously, because we're over a year in and still talking to you about it. And it was a lot of extra work for everybody. So just the verbal amendment to staff and their additional efforts, and finally we're to a point where we can breathe again, myself included.
Good work. Josh.
Yeah.
Thanks for making the effort to do that.
I will never do it again, to be honest, at least in this capacity where we're the first ones. That was way more than we signed up for, but.
So do you expect your name's gonna be out there for support that other municipalities gonna say, I'm gonna phone Josh and see that?
Well, they're doing that already as references, and it was structured that way on purpose.
So, okay.
And depending on when they contacted me, they got a good or bad reference. Depended on that week's problems, yeah. So, but at the end of the day, a few people that have reached out recently have gone to RFP, and they basically find that the last people did an RFP, they had 5 submissions, but 3 of them were this company, just with a different consultant facilitating it, and the other 2 couldn't offer them everything they needed in one software package, I guess. So it's becoming kind of a niche market, which I don't like. That's typically when things are not good support wise, when somebody's got a monopoly on the market, but.
So maybe anybody or some of our regional neighbors signed on with them now? Is it more the big urbans and?
Depends how far you want to stretch your.
Well, I'd say ours.
Nobody that we have an ICF agreement is, but a lot of them are with Diamond. As a end of life as well, so they will be looking at it. Diamond just did it a little nicer than these guys did, and they gave everybody a 5-year warning. Most people were already leaving anyway, but, I think Saddle Hills, or not Saddle Hills, west. Like Spurchill's, I think is probably the closest one right now. Don't print that because it's all. Yeah.
Okay, any questions on Josh's report? Get a motion to acknowledge receipt.
I would like to.
Next one.
Okay.
She can have the bank back.
Yeah, so item B is January banquet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Figured I'd give these to you more than once a year. Keep the agenda a little shorter.
It's appreciated.
So it's there, realistically, you guys will start getting these. Probably the second meeting of every month for the month prior, I finally have everything in the hands of the auditors that they were waiting for, so I have time to actually look at other stuff now. For a couple days, so that's why this one's here, no issues or anything to point out, it's there for your adoption. Your acceptance, I guess.
If there's no questions for Josh on it, we'll get a motion from Linda to accept the January bank register reconciliation.
Bank
Yes.
reconciliation.
Yes.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, on it, the partner of the accounting firm that we used when he was up here, he did say, I really like this new format for your bank reconciliation. Because it's so detailed, it actually walks through every entry and how it's matched off from the bank side to the system side. So he told me that and I laughed at him. I said, you and I are probably the only people in the world who can appreciate what goes into this, because everybody else, it's 20 pages of nonsense. So somebody else likes it.
I didn't say that. Okay, item C is the March journal register.
Yeah, payment register, yeah. Send check register, payment register, this is what we've paid people for the month of. We call it March, it's in February and March. And also I apologize, there's some duplicates in here, so if any of you have that flagged as a question. This is just a report that is printed using some filters, so. There's some duplicate payments in there that weren't paid twice, they're just listed twice on this report. Other than that, it's here for any questions if you have them. I didn't have any flagged. I thought you guys would ask.
I have none. Anybody else? Motion to acknowledge receipt then? Councillor Thies, all in favor? It's carried. Okay, let's take a little break. Linda will take a 10-minute break.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll reconvene. And we'll move to all the way down to 6.61. Item A, we have a subdivision report 25 NL02. Gail, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
We're great. So we have Pearls here with us as well, but we'll let you take us through this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So the applicant proposes to subdivide a 4.15 hectare or 10.25 acre parcel from the northeast of 79323 west of the 5th for an agricultural residential parcel. The proposed parcel is more than 4 hectares or 10 acres maximum the county's land use bylaw allows for in the agriculture general A district. The additional parcel size is required to accommodate the physical characteristics of the site, such as a dugout and an open discharge system. The Municipal Government Act, the county's municipal development plan, and the land use bylaw grants discretion to the development authority to approve larger parcel sizes to accommodate related farm buildings and improvements. Based on site characteristics, it is reasonable to consider the applicant's request for a 4.15 hectare or 10.25 acre parcel. The subject lands are located south of Township Road 932 and west of Range Road 235, 13.8 kilometers northwest of Manning. The Hotchkiss River is located 840 meters north of the subject lands. The quarter section and proposed parcel are designated A district. The proposed parcel is in the northwest corner of the quarter section and contains an existing dwelling, detached garage, a dugout, and an existing sewage tank. The applicant has advised that the grain bins located on the proposed parcel will be moved to the balance of the quarter. Approximately half of the lands on the balance of the quarter are under cultivation, with the remainder covered in trees. 2 dugouts are located on the quarter. An access right-of-way and a dirt road are located along the south boundary of the quarter and provide access to adjacent lands. There are no well sites and no records of spills or contamination within the quarter section. There is a low-pressure gas line owned by North Peace Co-op within the quarter and an ATCO power line on the south side of Township Road 932 providing power to the proposed parcel. The quarter section and proposed parcel are not within the Grimshaw Gravels Aquifer. The proposed parcel and most of the quarter section are designated Class 2 soil with moderate limitations, with a small triangular area in the northeast corner being designated Class 5 soil with very severe limitations. Although Class 2 soils are considered better agriculture land by the Municipal Development Plan, the Municipal Development Plan allows a maximum of 1 residential parcel to be subdivided from an unsubdivided quarter section, and also allows the Development Authority to exempt lands from the better agriculture land definition, specifically when those lands are compatible with adjacent land uses. In this instance, the Development Authority may exempt the proposed parcel area from the better agriculture land definition, as it is compatible with existing subdivisions and land uses in the surrounding area, and is also the first parcel out of the quarter section intended for farmstead separation. All lands adjacent to the quarter section are designated A district with exception to the quarter section located northeast of the subject lands, which is designated Crown Land District. The subdivision is compatible with existing land uses in the surrounding area and is not considered to have a negative impact on adjacent lands. A wetland review and a review of the area show a couple of pockets of marsh with some drainage creeks within the quarter section and outside the proposed parcel. The proposed parcel has legal and physical access from Township Road 932, while the balance of the quarter has legal access from Township Road 932 to the north and Range Road 235 to the east. Physical access to the balance of the quarter is from an access in the southeast corner of the quarter. The county's water line, which runs adjacent to Township 932, provides service to the proposed parcel. The proposed parcel complies with policy 4.2.5 and 4.27 of the Municipal Development Plan, because the proposed parcel is the first subdivision from the quarter section and accommodates a farmstead separation. The proposed parcel exceeds the maximum lot size of 4.0 hectares or 10 acres of the Agriculture General A District. The Development Authority, however, may approve larger parcel sizes to accommodate related farm buildings and improvements. Pursuant to Section 654(2) of the Municipal Government Act, the county may approve a subdivision that does not comply with the land use bylaw, provided the proposed subdivision would not interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring parcels of land, and the proposed subdivision conforms with the uses prescribed for the land in the land use bylaw. In accordance with Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act, reserves cannot be requested in the case of a first parcel out from a quarter section. ATCO Electric has advised that the existing power line facilities will be impacted by this change. They will be approaching the landowner for the purpose of acquiring a power line right-of-way on all facilities directly affected by this subdivision. ATCO Electric has advised that they will register the power line right-of-way on title in the form of a caveat. They have further advised that preparation, acquisition, and registration of the caveat will be the sole responsibility of ATCO Electric, and that the landowner shall not be responsible for any costs related to the aforementioned process. There were no comments from TELUS. We have received nothing or Alberta Energy Regulators indicated that they have nothing to add to this file. Alberta Municipal Affairs responded indicating that the current private sewage system may not meet the separation distance requirements for an open discharge pump out system. The separation distance from the open discharge to the west property boundary is 66 meters. The requirement is 90 meters. If the above separation distances cannot be achieved, they are recommending the homeowner contact Superior Safety Codes or Inspections Group and ask for their opinion if they would grant a variance for the separation distance from the open discharge. Alternatively, the homeowner may need to move the location of the open discharge, or the homeowner may need to consider installing an alternate system that meets the requirements of the Alberta Private Sewage System Standard of Practice. Policy I-31A-4A requires approaches located on the same side of a local road to be separated a minimum distance of 152 meters or 500 feet. The county has advised that one of the two existing accesses to the proposed parcel will need to be removed. Removal of the existing access is to be in accordance with county standards. So it is recommended that the subdivision application to create a 4.15 hectare or 10.25 acre parcel from the northeast 79323 west of the 5th be approved, subject to the conditions outlined.
Okay, thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions on the subdivision?
I have one if I can. Gail, does the applicant, have they been made aware of Alberta Municipal Affairs comments?
Yes, and they have been in touch with Municipal Affairs and they will not be granted a variance. So
Yeah.
that is the reason for the parcel being wider than they first applied for. So the parcel has to be a minimum of 180 meters in order to accommodate an open discharge. So by making the parcel wider than what they normally applied for, or earlier applied for, they can accommodate that, and they're aware that it will have to be moved.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I don't think he was aware of that when I spoke with him, so it's good.
Oh, I've been in emails with them, and yeah, we've been in discussions with the landowner.
So discharge will have to be moved, is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
It will have to be relocated to the middle of the parcel.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so Councillor Deckham has moved to acknowledge receipt of the subdivision approved with the following 8 conditions. Any last comments, discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Gail.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Item 7.0 is Councillor Ward reports. We have there's a picture of this, and then I see Linda emailed that she didn't have one, other than she had a call from a community member why the landfill wasn't open. Whoops, I didn't see that. He had called it till 5, but said all good, he got it done. Not sure what that meant. So that's her ward report.
We got one call to the office about that yesterday as well. So I'm not sure that everybody was reached with the communication, but I know it was advertised that the hours have changed, so.
Yeah, and that's what I also told him that to Josh. I'm a little scared that he might have dumped the garbage somewhere, but I'm not sure.
The learning curve again. Because it changed from what they always had. Okay, so there's a motion to accept the.
I'll let you make motion.
Okay, Councilor Halibisky, all in favor? Carried. Info package, is there a review, comments coming out of it?
Yeah, I got a question here for Josh. That's on designated industrial recreational.
Yeah.
This previous remittance balance in previous years, $202. This year it's $77,780.
So the balance isn't what they charged us, that's the balance left. So this one works a little different than the education one. We have to charge the rates that they set. If we have any assessment changes throughout the year, they can go up or down, it actually will impact our balance. with education, what we do is we look at that when we pass the rates and we look at what we over levied or under levied and adjust the rates accordingly. So that balance is just as a result of assessment changes, we owe them another $202 from last year based on assessment changes. 77,000 is our annual charge.
Okay.
So last year it was 74. Figure that out for you in a second. But yeah, it didn't go from 202 to
Okay, yeah, that's.
75.
All right, that clears it up, thanks.
Any other comments on the info package?
No, I did email council of the MLA letters.
I see that. Okay, get a motion to acknowledge receipt, accept for information. Councillor Shug, all in favor, carried. Open mic, Dan.
Well, I see that most of the changes in the water bylaw refer to application for rural water connections. I was just wondering how to summarize it.
No, most of the changes are related to drought actions. All the red font there or formatting change was just font and changes on the application form. Okay, yeah, so it's that whole appendix F, schedule F. Schedule F, yeah, that's the bulk of the material changes.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Oh, but
You're good? Well, thank you. We've got a couple in camera items, we know the rule with delegation, so we're gonna go to camera. Okay, continue to go on camera, item 17. All in favor, it's carried.